Officer Sarah Harris, a seasoned police officer, was patrolling a quiet highway on a calm Tuesday night. The late-night air was still, with only the pale moonlight casting a faint silver glow on the road and the occasional static from the radio breaking the silence. There weren't many incidents at this hour, and Sarah had grown accustomed to peaceful nights like this throughout her 10 years on the force. However, just then, she noticed a black sedan ahead swerving slightly between lanes. Her sharp eyes immediately locked onto the suspicious vehicle. The driver could be fatigued, distracted, or worse, driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. With her experience and instinct, Sarah knew she couldn't ignore this. Without hesitation, she switched on her police lights, the flashing red and blue piercing through the darkness. At the same time, she activated the siren, signaling the vehicle to pull over. The sedan gradually slowed down and stopped by the roadside, its engine still idling. There was no sign of panic or resistance from the driver, but something about the situation felt unusual. Sarah took a deep breath, quickly checked her flashlight and communication device, then opened her car door. Stepping out with a firm posture, she kept one hand close to her utility belt, ready for any situation. The closer she got, the stronger her sense of unease grew. As the driver's window slowly rolled down, the dim glow of the streetlights illuminated the young woman behind the wheel. Her striking green eyes held an unsettling calmness, and her auburn hair was loosely tied at the back. Sarah frowned slightly, not because of the woman's appearance, but because of something small yet deeply familiar on her wrist. A tattoo. A crescent moon with a tiny star nestled beside it. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She had seen that tattoo before. It belonged to someone she had lost long ago. The driver, a young woman, handed over her documents to Sarah. She recognized the tattoo on the woman's arm, 3 red flames and a golden horse, identical to the one her missing sister Emily had. Sarah's heart skipped a beat, and her breath suddenly became shallow. She had seen this tattoo countless times before, etched on Emily's arm, the sister she had loved dearly but had vanished 20 years ago. This couldn't be a coincidence. She took a closer look at the woman before her. Auburn hair, bright eyes filled with determination, and facial features that seemed both familiar and distant. Sarah's hands tightened slightly as she exchanged a gaze with the young woman, a whirlwind of emotion swirling inside her. "This tattoo, what does it mean to you?" Sarah asked, her voice hoarse with emotion. The woman looked surprised by the question, but then she gave a soft smile, gently touching the tattoo on her arm as if it were a cherished memory. "It belonged to my mother," she replied. "She told me it was a symbol of strength and resilience." Sarah could hardly breathe. Those exact words, they were the same ones Emily used to say. A dizzying wave of the past and present crashed into her, making it hard to distinguish reality from memory. "Who is your mother?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The woman remained silent for a moment before slowly reaching into the glove compartment and pulling out an old photograph. The edges were worn, slightly frayed, but the image remained clear. Sarah stared at the picture, feeling as if the ground beneath her feet was shifting. A young woman with auburn hair and vibrant eyes smiled warmly at the camera. On her arm, a tattoo of 3 red flames and a golden horse was unmistakable. "My mother is Emily Harris," the woman said softly. The name struck Sarah like a bolt of lightning. She took a step back, her eyes widening, her heart pounding against her ribs. Emily, her sister. The one she had searched for, mourned, and longed for over the past 20 years. And now, standing before her, was Emily's daughter. But what about Emily? Was she still alive? The driver, a young woman, handed over her documents to Sarah. She recognized the tattoo on the woman's arm, 3 red flames and a golden horse, identical to the one her missing sister Emily had. Sarah's heart skipped a beat, and her breath suddenly became shallow. She had seen this tattoo countless times before, etched on Emily's arm, the sister she had loved dearly but had vanished 20 years ago. This couldn't be a coincidence. She took a closer look at the woman before her. Auburn hair, bright eyes filled with determination, and facial features that seemed both familiar and distant. Sarah's hands tightened slightly as she exchanged a gaze with the young woman, a whirlwind of emotion swirling inside her. "This tattoo, what does it mean to you?" Sarah asked, her voice hoarse with emotion. The woman looked surprised by the question, but then she gave a soft smile, gently touching the tattoo on her arm as if it were a cherished memory. "It belonged to my mother," she replied. She told me it was a symbol of strength and resilience. Sarah could hardly breathe. Those exact words, they were the same ones Emily used to say. A dizzying wave of the past and present crashed into her, making it hard to distinguish reality from memory. "Who is your mother?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The woman remained silent for a moment before slowly reaching into the glove compartment and pulling out an old photograph. The edges were worn, slightly frayed, but the image remained clear. Sarah stared at the picture, feeling as if the ground beneath her feet was shifting. A young woman with auburn hair and vibrant eyes smiled warmly at the camera. On her arm, a tattoo of 3 red flames and a golden horse was unmistakable. "My mother is Emily Harris," the woman said softly. The name struck Sarah like a bolt of lightning. She took a step back, her eyes widening, her heart pounding against her ribs. Emily, her sister. The one she had searched for, mourned, and longed for over the past 20 years. And now, standing before her, was Emily's daughter. But what about Emily? Was she still alive? Emily vanished without a trace, leaving behind an immense void in Sarah's family. The night she disappeared was etched in Sarah's memory, like a scar that never faded. Emily had gone out for a short walk, just like she always did to clear her mind, but she never returned. At first, no one panicked. Maybe she had lost track of time. Maybe she had stopped by a friend's house. But as the hours stretched into an entire night, dread settled in. Sarah, along with her parents, searched the streets, calling Emily's name into the empty darkness. The police were involved soon after, but there were no leads, no witnesses, no signs of a struggle, nothing. It was as if Emily had simply disappeared into thin air. Days turned into weeks, then months. The town was covered in missing posters with Emily's face smiling back, full of life. Rumors swirled, some whispering that she had run away, others fearing something far worse. But Sarah never believed Emily would leave voluntarily. Her sister loved their family too much for that. Her parents were never the same after Emily's disappearance. Her mother cried herself to sleep every night, while her father threw himself into work, unable to bear the emptiness at home. Sarah, the once carefree older sister, was forced to grow up too soon, carrying the weight of guilt and loss on her shoulders. Even after the case went cold, Sarah never stopped looking. Every unfamiliar face in a crowd, every woman with auburn hair, every glimpse of a familiar silhouette made her heart race. But year after year, there was nothing. No closure, no answers, just a painful mystery that haunted her. And now, standing on the side of the road, looking at the woman before her, Sarah's world was unraveling. Could it be? Had Emily somehow survived all these years? And if so, why had she never come back? The woman revealed that the tattoo belonged to her mother, Emily Harris. Emily had given her this car and explained that the tattoo symbolized hope and the strength to overcome adversity. She recalled her mother's words, "No matter what happens, no matter how lost you may feel, always remember that you are stronger than you think." This tattoo is a reminder to never give up. Sarah stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Emily, the sister she had mourned for 20 years, was still alive? Why hadn't Emily come back? What had kept her away from her family for so long? "Your mother, where is she now?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. The young woman met Sarah's gaze, as if she could feel the storm of emotions raging inside her. She took a deep breath before answering. "She's alive. She left town years ago and has been living under a different name. But she never forgot you or her family. She was always afraid that coming back would bring danger, but she never stopped hoping that one day she would see you again." Sarah felt as if the world around her was blurring. A surge of hot tears threatened to fall, but she held them back. For years, she had believed she would never see Emily again. And yet, fate had now brought her closer to her sister than ever before. "Please take me to her," Sarah said, her voice filled with emotion. The young woman nodded, offering a small but knowing smile before turning the key in the ignition. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. After 20 long years, she was finally about to see Emily again. Stunned, Sarah realized that the young woman before her was her niece and that her sister, Emily, was still alive but had been forced to live under a different identity. A whirlwind of emotions surged through her: shock, relief, joy, and an overwhelming sense of longing. "I don't understand," Sarah whispered, struggling to process the revelation. Why did she have to stay away? What happened to her? The young woman, still gripping the photograph of Emily, hesitated for a moment before responding. My mother was taken, she said softly, her voice laced with pain. The night she disappeared, she was kidnapped. She spent years trapped, unable to escape. When she finally got away, she was too afraid to come back. She thought that if she returned, the man who took her might come after her, or worse, come after you. Sarah felt her breath hitch. The thought of Emily suffering alone for all those years, living in fear, broke her heart. She had spent 2 decades believing Emily had vanished without a trace, never knowing that her sister had been out there, wanting to return but too afraid to do so. She wanted to find you, the young woman continued, her voice steady but emotional. But she thought it was too late. She thought you had moved on. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. She was never forgotten, Sarah said, her voice firm despite the lump in her throat. Not for a single day. The young woman reached out, placing a comforting hand on Sarah's. Then let's go see her, she said gently. Sarah nodded, swallowing back the wave of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. As the car pulled onto the road, Sarah's heart pounded with anticipation. She was about to reunite with the sister she had lost so long ago. No matter what had happened in the past, one thing was certain: Emily was alive. And this time, Sarah would never let her go. Sarah reunited with Emily, who, with tears in her eyes, revealed the painful truth. She had been kidnapped that night, taken from everything she knew and loved. For years, she had been held captive, trapped in a nightmare she never thought she would escape. But when opportunity came, she ran. She built a new life under a different name, always looking over her shoulder, always afraid. I wanted to come back, Sarah, Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Every single day I thought about you, about our family. But I was terrified. What if he found me again? What if I put you in danger? Sarah reached forward, gripping Emily's hands tightly. You don't have to be afraid anymore, she said, her voice filled with determination. You're safe now. You're home. Emily let out a shaky breath, as if the weight of years of fear and sorrow had finally begun to lift. I thought you had forgotten me, Emily admitted. Sarah shook her head, her own tears falling freely now. Never, she said firmly. I never stopped looking for you. I never stopped hoping. The two sisters embraced, holding on to each other as if afraid to let go again. The past had stolen so much time from them, but in this moment, none of it mattered. They were together. They were family. As the days passed, Sarah helped Emily reconnect with the life she had lost. Emily met Sarah's family, was welcomed with open arms, and slowly, the wounds of the past began to heal. Though the scars of her ordeal would always remain, Emily was no longer alone. For the first time in decades, she truly felt safe. She was home. Emily's daughter grew up hearing stories about her Aunt Sarah, tales of the strong, determined woman who never stopped searching for her lost sister. Though she had never met Sarah, she felt a deep connection to her, as if they were linked by an unbreakable bond. My mother always spoke about you, she told Sarah, a soft smile on her lips. She told me how brave you were, how you never gave up on the people you loved. I always hoped that one day I would find you, that I could bring our family back together. Sarah's heart swelled with emotion. Even after all these years apart, even through all the pain and fear, the love between them had never faded. You didn't just find me, Sarah said gently, placing a hand over her niece's. You brought me back to Emily. You brought our family back together. Tears shimmered in the young woman's eyes as she nodded. I just wanted my mother to have peace, she whispered, to know she was never truly alone. Sarah pulled her niece into a warm embrace, silently thanking the young woman for her courage, for her determination, for the hope that had led them all here. That night, as they sat together, sharing stories and laughter, Sarah realized something. This wasn't just a reunion. It was a new beginning. The second chance at the life they had all thought was lost. No matter how much time had passed, no matter the pain they had endured, they were together now. And that was all that mattered. Sarah introduced Emily to her family, and they welcomed her with open arms. Her husband shook Emily's hand warmly, her children hugged their long-lost aunt without hesitation, and for the first time in decades, Emily felt like she truly belonged. Tears flowed freely, not from sorrow, but from overwhelming joy. The pain of the past had not vanished, but in this moment, surrounded by love, it felt lighter. As they sat together in the living room, reminiscing and laughing through tears, Sarah reached for Emily's hand and squeezed it gently. "You're home now," Sarah whispered, her voice full of emotion. Emily nodded, her heart full. "I never thought this day would come," she admitted. "But it did," Sarah said, smiling. "Because no matter what happens, family finds its way back to each other." The night stretched on with stories, laughter, and the warmth of long-lost connections rekindled. The past had taken so much from them, but it had not broken them. They had survived. And as Emily looked around at the faces of her loved ones, she realized that hope had never truly left her. It had simply been waiting for the right moment to bring her home.